Welcome back, all you Fabricans and Fleshbags, to the super not funny show reviews. And today we're doing something slightly different on the reviews. We're going to be reviewing Morbius, and I'm going to tell you why it's actually a pretty good movie. So stick around. Let's hear me make my case. So Morbius, the living vampire, the comic book character, it's his own movie starring Jared Leto as the titular vampire scientist, doctor, whatever. And I'm going to assume that most of you who are watching this have seen that a lot of people didn't like it. It's not very popular. People are saying it's trash, etc., etc. It got pretty bad reviews, bad Rotten Tomatoes, whatever. And so probably most of you haven't seen it, or maybe you have seen it and you're just like trying to figure out what's up. So that's what I'm here for, and I'm here to tell you, actually, Morbius is actually pretty good. Um, I think where it falls down, if when it falls down, isn't just not being very innovative, not breaking much ground. If it suffers from anything, it's simply from being a run of the mill superhero movie. A run of the mill, I don't want to even call it an anti hero movie because he's not an anti hero. In the comics, he's an anti hero of sorts, sometimes villain, sometimes hero. In this case, he's just a straight up hero. I mean, a dude that's crippled with a rare blood disease from the get go, but very smart. And thanks to a friend who's rich and also has a similar blood disease, he gets to spend his whole career, I'm assuming, 20, 30 years, becoming a preeminent doctor in the field and trying to figure out innovative ways to cure the disease, and in the process making life-saving fake blood. And then goes on to do illegal experiments, and long story short, some genetic shenanigans happen, and he suddenly becomes this Batman, almost literally, and a vampire, if you will, that can subsist on fake blood, but real blood's the thing. It's all comic book nonsense. Let's just call it what it is: comic book nonsense. None of it makes any sense scientifically, but it's a Marvel thing, so why should it? So where this movie really, it's just making an excuse for why this guy can do fun and interesting things. But from there, the arriving at this conclusion, of the experiment to where he becomes this, part bat, cool guy, is, it's not anything you haven't seen before, but it's interesting to get there. And once he actually becomes this guy, then it's about, oh, what can I do? Oh, he can do cool stuff. Like you've literally seen this before. That's, to me, that's ultimately the biggest sin that this movie does. Every other sin it commits has been committed by other comic book movies. Venom, most specifically. This movie takes a lot of cues from Venom in that, this guy gets a power, and then like the other guy that he has to fight gets a power. I like the fact that it was his best friend, and that they had a falling out essentially over this cure that also could turn into something, kind of terrible. I like that, he learns to use his powers, and he's very reluctant about it, and ultimately sees it as his responsibility to recage this, put back into the bottle this genie he's let go with his friend. And then it's just a battle of philosophies, which, if you look at any other comic book thing, tends to be what's going on. It's just two opposing philosophies sort of, physically fighting it out and ideologically fighting it out at the same time. His friend who's a hedonist anyway, who wants to be even more hedonist with his vampire powers. Okay, yeah, cool. But beyond that, there's also, sort of hero worship of Michael Morbius, and because he sort of has done some pretty amazing things with his intelligence and his feeling of responsibility for kind of loosing things onto the world. But beyond that, I mean, that and his relationship with his doctor, assistant, friend, whatever, and how that sort of plays itself out. That he sees he could do use his power for good, and the rest of it is, sort of a little Shakespearean in that, the wise mentor, father figure. You know, he's in the way of the bad guys. You know, Milo's ultimate desire, and so he has to go. And there's all, you know, you've always liked him better. He's the favorite son. All that good stuff. They did sort of do Tyrese and Al Madrigal wrong by having them in there as kind of not really of any consequence characters. So there's a lot of indication that this movie is longer and more involved, and that it just got cut. It just got cut in the interest of making a shorter and tighter movie, and it sort of makes some of the characters just superfluous. They're just kind of there to fill out the story. And also, I will say this: those notorious post-credit scenes that are supposed to be so terrible, they don't bother me. Look, they're building up to a Sinister Six. This is not bothersome to me. What's more bothersome to me is that there's also clearly more story going on with Adrian Toomes, and they just sort of, shoved it in there in a weird way to connect to No Way Home, to explain why the Venomverse suddenly has a Vulture from another universe. And it's a little clumsy, but I mean, again, we just saw, people crossing universes before. It's not terribly hard for me to accept. So, yeah, if this were on the scale of, worst comic book movie ever, best comic book movie, it's in the lower half, but it's a decent enough movie. I was entertained. I had fun, and it's actually pretty good. It's just not up to the standards maybe some people were hoping that it would achieve, and I really doubt we're going to see more of this. But for what it was worth, I do want to see more of Michael Morbius in the universe, and to see how he ends up having to go toe-to-toe with, I'm assuming, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. I think there's some hints that maybe this is the Venomverse, and that the Venomverse has Andrew Garfield as his Spider-Man. So, all around, I did like the movie, and I'm glad I took the time to go see it. So, anyway, what did you guys think about this movie? How badly did you disagree with me? Why don't you get down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. Of course, you can always hit me up, supernotfunnyshow@gmail.com, or at supernotfunnys1 on Twitter, and let's chop it up. I will defend this movie. Just trust me. Anyway, thanks for joining me on this review. Come back next time. We got plenty more reviews where this came from. Until then, I have been Mo Pupe, your resident fabricant and commentator extraordinaire on all things pop culture. And I'll see you guys on the other side of the thread. Peace.